I do. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for making time to join us this afternoon. My name is Cleopatra Mosana. I'm the Head of Communications at National Treasury. With me is the Minister of Finance, accompanied by the two Deputy Minister and the Director General of the National Treasury. The briefing today is to talk about the process moving forward regarding Budget 2025. I'm now going to allow the Minister of Finance to do the opening remarks. Thank you. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Oh, is it afternoon? Oh, sorry. The budget of the 12th of March 2025 and the proposed VAT increase sparked a rigorous debate, as is right in a healthy democracy. Today, there's a clarity VAT will remain at 15%. This decision was shaped not only by political debates, but importantly by the voices of South Africans. When people speak, we must also listen. And I'm encouraged by the passion shown. It reflects the seriousness with which we approach the hard choices needed to place our finances on a sustainable path. Protect the vulnerable and accelerate growth. I must say, part of the difficulty we've not been talking about. We're all new in South Africa to what is called coalition politics. And there are lessons to be learned, both by cabinet and the legislature, and by ourselves. I'm also pleased that we have agreed we will balance the budget without raising VAT while protecting vital services like education, health, and social grants. Going forward, the Treasury's focus is threefold. First, as I've indicated, we must balance the budget by managing our cost better. Raising other taxes besides VAT further was not an option. It would harm growth, savings, and jobs. Borrowing more would worsen our debt crisis. We already spend more than R1 billion a day servicing debt. We must do more with less, review government spending critically, root out waste. Every cent of public money must be spent wisely. The second issue, we must strengthen revenue collection. As you are aware, in the same budget, I'm making provision for SARS to collect more, particularly for those who still owe SARS, to deal with illicit trading. The third area, we must lay strong foundations for economic growth. Job creation is the number one priority. We must remove barriers to investment, unlock private sector capital, and expand opportunities for all South Africans. Through initiatives like Operation Vulindlela, which I assume you all know it by now, we have already seen what focused collaboration can achieve, and will now accelerate these reforms. The challenges ahead are serious but not insurmountable. If we work together, stay focused, and persevere, we can chart a better course for our economy and our people. That is my commitment to South Africans. And that is what we aim to achieve when we table the new budget on the 21st of May 2025. The statement before you, which I hope it has been circulated, outlines the various technical processes we will undertake in the period leading to the 21st of May. And we're here to take any further questions you may have on this particular matter. The DG has instructed me to tell you that between now and the 21st, I won't talk to you. It's a closed period. However much I would have liked to talk to you, that's an instruction from the DG. He normally gives us that instruction. He knows politicians like to waffle now and again. Unfortunately, this is my last appearance until the 21st. Thank you very much. For today, utilize the opportunity and ask me as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
You
didn't off ramp.
No,
no, thanks. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, colleagues. I'll now take this opportunity to take questions. If you can identify yourself in the media house that you are coming from. I have identified number 1, number 2, and number 3. In that order, thanks. Thanks. Can I get number 2?
Version of the budget, there were several measures to cushion the poor in the light of the VAT increase. Does this VAT increase indicate the need to keep the budget to the same extent? So will there be a scaling down?
Can you raise the voice a bit?
I'm asking, with the scaling of the VAT increase, will there be scaling down in protection measures that were built into the previous version of the budget to protect in the light of the VAT increase?
Number 3. You may come in, introduce yourself, the organization you're representing.
Good day, I just want to ask the Minister if you are quite certain that these budgets that you're going to be presenting will be approved by what is it that you're doing to ensure that you don't go through the same hurdles this one will go through? And then the second question is, what are some of the practical steps that will be following from now on leading up to the 21st of May in terms of budget process?
Thank you so much. Over to you, Minister.
You had predictable when I knew this question is going to arise. Let me put it in proper context first and foremost. First and foremost, and put it in proper context. We are we're dealing with uncharted terrain. As you are aware, we used to have a budget with the dominant party being the ANC. And one was prepare the budget, you show it, go to parliament, and the ANC will pass the budget. Now, we are in a coalition government. That coalition government takes in two forms. One, there's a GNU in cabinet, but in parliament there's a number of political parties. Therefore, when you table a money bill, Section 77 of the Constitution empowers me to do that. I was within my constitutional parameters to table a money bill. What then happened, because of the nature of the coalition politics, we couldn't find consensus, both in cabinet and in the legislature. I'm not going to put blame on anybody, but that process on its own, because all of us are new in this thing, was messy. That process on its own is messy. We all have learned from it. All of us have learned it because we might have gone to it not anticipating the kind of challenges we faced. Now, it would be unfair to say to me, having performed in terms of my constitutional obligations of proposing a money bill in Parliament and get into an environment of multi-party environment which created largely a tension, and then say, I must resign. At this stage where I sit, I think in that context, people must understand this thing in that context. By the way, on this question, let me conclude by saying that decision does not lie with me. It lies with the president. But I'm mindful of the fact that the president has been participating, he himself, in this process. He understands the nature of the challenges we've been experiencing in dealing with this problem. So I don't think I can answer that question and say that's my intention at the moment. No. There are two aspects to the second question, questioning the impact. The first one was, which one are going to be reversed? All of those that were related to question the impact as a result of VAT, those will be removed because there's no longer VAT now. But the strategic thrust of questioning the impact on the poor in terms of dealing with social services which affect the poor, which is education, health, and social protection, those remain the strategic focus of government. Will the bill be approved by Parliament? I can't second guess Parliament. I must respect Parliament's autonomy and say we'll approach Parliament in the manner we've done with the respect it deserves. And our duty is to present a case to Parliament to approve this one. And I think that's what we're working on. When you talk about the steps, what are the steps we're doing? We're trying to construct a budget between now and the 21st, and those steps are outlined in the press statement, so that we can produce a saleable document to Parliament. That's the kind of work we're trying to do now. And given these complexity of governments, we've got to work hard in such we can produce a document which will be saleable. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Can I take the second round of questions? I have number 1, number 2, and number 3. Over to you, Hilary.
said asset sale, right?
Which will be led by the withdrawal of the VAT increases, but also potentially by lower economic growth.
Thanks. Number two.
Just a few practical questions, Charity and PG maybe. The money bill is no longer in play. It's been scrapped now because we are starting with the budget entirely from scratch. This is not a tinkering, an amendment here and there, the entire budget. Just some clarity on that. And then you wrote to the speaker, I believe, yesterday regarding this 21 May date. Has this date now been confirmed, or does it have to go to the programming committee just in terms of the process around the date? What is that? And then in terms of the timelines that we're now working with, according to the PFMA, this needs to be wrapped up by July. That's still the case. DG, maybe you can just walk us through what the deadlines are ordinarily, and now that we're here, given that we're past April and the financial year, what are the implications for this delay? Thank you very much.
Thanks. Just before number 3 comes in, can the GCIS technical team assist? The colleagues online cannot hear at all. If you can just assist in that technical glitch. Can I get number 3?
Thank you. It's Katel Sohoto from Kaya 959. Minister, how does the reversal of the VAT, perhaps the reversal of the VAT hike affect Treasury's credibility with investors and ratings agencies, especially perhaps after the budget was tabled with that revenue measure as a key pillar?
Thanks. What I will do before I come back on here, Minister is going to respond in the DG, and then I'm going to take online questions, and then we'll do the last round.
On this simple question, do we have asset sales in the back of our mind for this purpose? No. Could there be asset sales? There's a possibility, but we're not factoring that here. There's ongoing work in different areas where there is ports and so on, but it's not something which is taken into account in this thing. The practical question about programming, we have approached the Speaker for the 21st. As I understand, the Speaker is taking that to the programming committee today. Your second part of your question, the DG will deal with it. He's also going to add on the credibility issue. Let me say why we are not worried. Why we are not worried. Really, the credibility issue is not going to be the reversal of VAT. The credibility issue is going to arise of the final product, the final budget that's adopted. Whether that budget will reflect fiscal sustainability and fiscal prudence. That's where the credibility issue will arise. Mind you, all these rating agencies and investor community are used to a chaos of coalition governments, particularly in the advanced economies. For them, it's not something new. Not something new. I've spent some time as well after my chaos to try and understand how people work and read, how people work in this environment. It's clearly we're not alone. And the investor community is not their worry. Their worry is going to be what is the final product? To what extent is that final product going to reflect fiscal prudence and fiscal sustainability? Did you want to add on these 2 points?
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. On those two questions, in terms of the timelines, I believe the question was, it's actually not the PFMA, it's the Money Bills and Related Matters Act, Section 10, subsection 7, that introduces a requirement for the appropriation bill to be passed within the first 4 months of the start of the new financial year. So the 1st of April plus 4 months, that's the actual deadline that needs to be met. And we will obviously be working with Parliament to ensure that we can meet that deadline. Secondly, in terms of the execution and the credibility, I think just 2 points to add on to what the Minister said. The first point is that you'll know that the PFMA does allow provision for spending to continue. So fortunately, we have a provision in the PFMA that says that the departments can continue to spend in line with the previous year's budget up until certain limits. And so from a spending point of view, the business of government is continuing. But getting to the broader question about fiscal credibility, which the Minister has touched on, we had an opportunity to engage with investors on the sidelines of the spring meetings in Washington last week. And the feedback from investors is exactly that. Fiscal credibility is measured by both the investors and by the rating agencies as a function of how effective we are as custodians of public finances. And so that is in turn a function of whether we meet our fiscal goals or not. So what they will be looking to us for, and for the government as a whole, is are we able to meet the fiscal goals that we've set for ourselves? And those we have outlined over the last few years, and we have consistently met those. And they are, amongst others, a growing primary surplus, where revenue exceeds non-interest expenditure, a debt to GDP ratio that is going to peak in 25-26, as well as shifting the composition of spending towards infrastructure and other growth enhancing types of spending. So for them, the test is, will the new budget that we are going to table meet those fiscal goals? And to the extent that it does, fiscal credibility is intact. To the extent that it doesn't, it starts putting fiscal credibility under threat. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. I'm now going to be taking questions online and then I'll come back here. We've got an online question from Carol Payton from News 24. Minister, doctors and other health workers in Gauteng and KZN were not paid at the end of April. Is this the fiscal crisis that you sought to avoid materializing? The second question comes from Business Day, Linda Enso. What potential areas has Treasury identified for possible savings? And did any of these emerge from discussions with political parties? If so, which ones? And the last question is from Full View from Lihlonono. Can the minister clarify if there was out-of-court settlement with the DA over the VAT hike? Also, is it true that 2.4 million was wasted on service providers for the postponement of the budget? Lastly, it's a comment. Treasury needs to reassess and rethink budgeting processes by instituting a consultative and transparent approach that incorporates enhanced governance as well as stakeholder engagement. And the last question is from Sophie Mokwena from the SABC. The budget allocation can lead to governments collapsing where there is power sharing. We saw that in Germany. Now that you have the first experience in relation to the challenges of the budget in the GNU, how are you going to handle the MTF in future? And are you looking to presenting new budget process?
Looking at the international trends. So those are all the online questions.
I don't run it operation. Minister, and Buzlo. I don't run operations. I cannot, at this stage, answering Carol's question. I'm not familiar. I'm not aware that there are doctors that have not been paid. It would be strange. 1 month in the financial year, people have run out of cash. They can't pay doctors. They can't pay anything. I find it difficult to answer that. I don't think it's a reflection of any financial crisis of some sort, because if there were any problems, they would reflect down the line in a couple of months in the financial year, not in the first month of the financial year. I don't know whether you are aware of that. The potential savings, no, it's too early to tell you that. What am I going to say on the 21st? I must have something I can brag about on the 21st. I can't tell you now. On the 21st, I've got to say, we have money to save this, to save this. If there are any savings, I don't know. We can't say that now. That's the reason the DG doesn't want me to speak to newspaper. The out-of-court settlement. Let me just outline a bit. The DA went to court to apply for 3 things. The first application was that the proceedings of the Portfolio Committee of Finance on the fiscal framework be declared invalid. The second application was to declare Section 7, subsection 4 of the VAT Act constitutionally invalid. The third was, pending the declaration of Section 7.4 as invalid in terms of the Constitution, I be interdicted from implementing the 5%. Now, it's quite important to trace this history of the earlier application by the DA. And then they were joined by EFF. We then announced on the 24th, we were in Washington, so there was a time difference. So when it reached South Africa, it was 12 midnight. We announced a reversal of that. Immediately, the DA filed a supplemental affidavit. In the supplemental affidavit, they say new developments have taken place. The minister has reversed that. But as the DA, we believe that reversal won't be effective before the 1st of May because the rates bill will not be passed. Okay? So we filed a responding affidavit to that, which said, insofar as they touched on the constitutionality of VAT, we still dispute that. But insofar as they say they are applying for the suspension of the rate increase, we have reversed it in any event. We have got no intention to oppose that part. Okay? The legislature says the implication of the minister's reversal is such that the minister will have to put up a new fiscal framework. Therefore, we are not defending the reversal of the fiscal framework dispute anymore, because we are going to replace it in any event. We then settled on those 2 bases. The first one, the legislature agreed not necessarily for declaration of invalidity of the proceedings, but for the setting aside of those provisions, given the fact that there's a new fiscal framework which is coming. We also settled with them on the basis that we were not opposing their application for the suspension of the rate, because in any event, we have agreed for we have agreed to reverse it. On 2.4, I don't even know the amount, to be honest. The DG is an accounting officer. He may know that I can't even burden the deputy ministers. The closest to that may be Deputy Minister Sarupen, because he is in charge of corporate services. But I'm not putting you on the block, but so DG will deal with that question. Consultation. I said we have learned some lessons. I think all of us. Once the budget is passed by Parliament finally, we intend developing a new process which takes into account the current environment. And that process, what consultation machinery we need to take in place and what process we need to take to develop. And that consultation in our mind has got to start in September, before the medium-term budget policy statement. Because the medium-term budget policy statement is a key milestone, because it shapes the content of the February budget. So we'll be developing a process of consultation in this regard, particularly in the GNU. Sophie's question about the MTF, what was it?
The budget allocation can lead to governments collapsing where there is power sharing. We saw that in Germany. Now that you have the first experience in relation to the challenges of budget within the GNU, how are you going to handle the MTF in future? And are you looking to presenting new proposals on the budget process, looking at international trends?
Yes, that's precisely the point I'm saying. We have now agreed that we need to find a new process of consultation, which must start latest September, so that by the time we table the medium-term budget policy statement, there's broadly an agreed approach on the budget over the medium term. So we're discussing the details of that is something we will announce at the appropriate time. Thank you.
You can remain the minister. Is the last one. Is the minister considering penning the TERS increase to possibly unlock funds? That's from MoneyWeb. TERS.
Doing what?
Are you planning to cancel
Which tariff?
the TERS?
I think
Oh,
they're talking about the UIF,
The UIF
TERS program.
oh, the
You are
UF.
the
Oh,
TERS
no. Okay, no. The TERS is governed by a different minister under a different legislation. There's a process which is looking at what is called active labor market processes in government. And that process is led by a cabinet committee led by Minister Math. We are looking at how to integrate all of these labor market policies into a coherent policies. As part of that, TERS will be part of those policies that are going to be taken into account. We will then, in my view, have an omnibus bill which makes amendments to the different legislation as we did with FATF, which will then make the necessary legislative changes. For now, the UIF is governed by a different act. We can't simply change it like other colleagues were saying. But to replace that, take the UIFs and take the skills or take all of these things. It's nice to have. They sit with good money, but they are governed by different legislation. For me to take money from those things, they need to be a change in legislation. We can't simply grab them. Okay, thank you. DG? Upadela 1 2.4 million. Pay what people to 1 million, I didn't know.
Thank you, Minister. So, in terms of the other questions, just in terms of the cost of the department, the costs that are incurred in terms of the budget process are mainly related to things like travel, accommodation, printing, advertising, and so on. And so the costs associated with the past two budgets does not constitute fruitless and wasteful expenditure. However, what we have done and what we will continue to do for the next budget is to see how we can further limit those costs, because we are mindful of the fact that these costs, as they are being incurred and as we are doing multiple budgets, they can be viewed in a very negative light. So, for example, for the next budget that we are tabling, we are going to cut down on the printing, for example. Some of the documents will only be made available electronically, and we will cut down on other aspects of the budget process as well to ensure that we are able to generate savings in that regard. There was also a question about the process, the budget process, and let me just talk about it from a Treasury perspective. We are constantly making changes to enhance the budget process. Some of those changes were introduced in the last budget cycle, where we changed, for example, the configuration of the technical committees that discuss some of the budget process, some of the budget elements, in order to create a more inclusive process and outcome. And we are currently considering further amendments to the technical process, which we can talk about further when we table the budget on the 21st. But they will include things like how we embed more concretely processes around spending reviews, for example, into the budget process itself, so that those spending efficiencies can come through more clearly. Just to add on the question of doctors in KZN, that question is probably better directed at the provincial treasury over there. But from our perspective, we are not aware of payments that are not being made. And two, as I indicated earlier, Section 29 of the PFMA actually allows spending to continue to take place by departments, even in the absence of an appropriation bill. So from our perspective, the fact that we do not yet have a appropriation bill that's been passed should not affect the ability of that particular province or any other province to meet its obligations in terms of compensation of employees' spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi.